Hello everyone, welcome back to Art Maxing on Adobe Live. This one is going to be a super special one. I'm really excited about it. We've got our good friend Cody on the show. Cody, welcome to the show.
What's up? Thanks for having me.
Dude,
Appreciate you.
thanks for being here. You are definitely somebody that I've wanted to have on the show for a while, someone I've known for a long time. Do you want to let people know kind of like who you are, what you do, the whole nine?
Sure. I'm Cody A. Banks. I'm an illustrator, mainly focusing in character design. I do a bit of animation here and there, but mainly just love to create new, fun characters, which you'll be seeing today, most likely.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you'll be able to crush it in the time frame that we have going. I mean, I got to say I definitely love your style. I feel like I inherently took influence from you cuz of like TikTok days. You were definitely big on TikTok at the time and definitely saw a lot of your work. So if you haven't seen his work, definitely check it out. And if you haven't seen this show, I got to give you the rundown to let you know how it goes. If you've seen past episodes, this one's going to be a little different. We're changing up the format. We want our game show to feel like a game show. So now we have segments. And what better way to start off a nice little new episode of Art Maxing than with a segment I like to call Command Z. This segment is a little warm up segment for all of us to kind of get an idea of, get into the Illustrator flow, because that's what we're working with today. And for me to ask you, Cody, a question to get you on the board. Or do you think you're ready for that question?
Let's do it. I'm ready to go.
Sweet. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this up on screen so you won't be able to see it, but our audience will. Our shortcut for today is pretty famous one, so maybe you'll get it. Most of us know that X, like just the letter X, switches our stroke and our fill pretty easily in Illustrator. But my question for you is, what does Shift X do? And if you need any
Shift
hints,
X.
I can let you know.
I gotta just say off the top of my head, is it delete? I'm not sure. Is it
It
delete something?
is not delete. It is, I guess what's the word? It's associated with fill and stroke.
Okay. Is
So
it
X will switch between the two. So like just, one to the other.
so Shift X is something else?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
It's a hard one. I'm sure the audience might be struggling too. I had to research this one myself.
Is that one? I want to just try it out real quick. I feel like that's cheating. Does it? So the X is just switch the two. Let's
Mm-hmm.
say Shift X is. Does it just like make it black and white, or does it like switch it to the default colors, maybe, or something? I'm just totally guessing right here. I have no idea.
I'm trying to think if I can give it to you.
Just give it to me.
Okay, I'll give it to you. So we didn't get this point, and that's totally fine. That's why it's a warm up. It actually switches the colors of the two. So it switches your stroke color with your fill color.
Oh, right.
So
Okay.
instead of just
I
switching
guess that.
between, it's hard though. This is why we do these refreshers. This is why we get
Yeah.
in our flow. And it's totally fine that you didn't get this first one, because there's going to be plenty of opportunities to get on the board. We're both learning together. I'm going to be honest, I didn't know this before we shot the show. So it's totally fine. So I will go ahead and remove this little keys question from our section. And yeah, now, of course, we're going to be moving into our little drawing segment. Of course, we have a objective, like secret objectives that I'll go ahead and pop up on screen for our audience now. Cody can't see these secret objectives. These are going to be specifically for the audience. And if Cody hits any of these, you will hear this sound, which means he got a point on the board. And I'm sure that we will be hitting some points today. Of course, you need to know what you're going to be drawing today, Cody. So are you ready for that objective and for your 30 minutes on the clock?
Let's do it. Let's get going.
Sweet. So your objective today is to create a mascot for candy. Just any candy that you like. So I'll go ahead and throw 30 minutes up on the clock. get us started with the design is my passion segment in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. I'm really excited to see your drawing style in action too. So,
Yeah, let's do it. So candy, I'm gonna just I'm thinking probably just like a little strawberry character,
mm-hmm.
like a little
Love it.
strawberry guy with like some arms and legs. So yeah, I'll just start off doing that.
I love it. I also see that you already kind of have like some swatches in a
Yeah,
color
so over
space.
here, this is my color palette. I keep it very consistent with my colors. I always have this purple outline on all of my artwork. So basically, anything that's like black
Mm-hmm.
is actually this color right here, which is technically purple. So all
I
the
feel
strokes
like
are purple.
that's like a classic like Illustrator thing. Like you want to add saturation to your design. At least it's something I've learned over time. Is like feels like almost like a faux pas to use just like straight black
Yeah,
anymore. I don't know. It makes it adds a bit more character and depth and texture. I'm kind of curious too. Like, how did you land on this like color palette? Because seeing your progression and seeing, you know, where you started with your characters and your designing, I feel like it definitely was something that developed over time, right? And then you kind of landed on this very recognizable style.
yeah. I had a color palette that I originally started with, where it was more of like a muted. Everything was muted, but I still kind of used this same like primary colors, where it's mostly this yellow, red, and blue, and then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I would throw in the green. But the white was always kind of, it was never pure white. It was always off white like this. So I was using that for like maybe a couple years, and then I was just playing around one time, and I was playing with the color options in within Illustrator, and one of the default settings was, I think it was actually fruit, which is kind of funny because I'm making a fruit right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and it came out to this. So
So
it
I
kind
love
of
it.
just changed. It changed my previous color palette into this, and I really liked it. So I've been sticking with it ever since.
I mean, I love it too. It's a very like it's like earthy in a way, but like also like it's still so saturated. I don't know. Like it's something that like I feel like when I see that color palette, I definitely recognize your work. It separates your work from say like other maybe mascot styles like Adam or even some stuff that I've
Mhm.
done. It's different, and I think it's really cool. And speaking of different, I definitely want to talk about a little bit for the unfamiliar, the people in the chat, kind of your drawing style, your techniques and the way that you approach shortcuts and stroke and the pencil tool. Like I feel like you have like mastered it. You know what I mean? Like it's few and far between to see people that have kind of been able to do things so cleanly and so efficiently. Like is that something that took like time for you? Is that something that kind of felt inherent as you used Illustrator?
Yeah, I definitely came up with my own techniques for doing things.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen anybody else design the way I do. I typically see people like doing the outline first and then filling in the outline with colors. Whereas, as you see, I'm doing shapes on top of shapes,
Mm-hmm.
which is, I guess, I don't know, not the, I don't want to say the incorrect way to do it, but you don't really see people doing that very often. It's just kind of what I've grown to do. And I think the way that started was when I was doing a lot of more animation work, where
Hmm.
when you're doing animation stuff, you really have to have everything separated out. And if you have just a solid outline that's all connected, it's going to make it a lot more difficult to animate. So when I was maybe like, I want to say like 6, 7 years ago, when I was doing a lot more animation stuff, is kind of when I developed this style of design, where I needed the eyes to be separate from the head, so that if the head was turning in the animation, I could just kind of move the eyes like that.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So that just kind of became my style of designing.
So like kind of design like it developed not only from like how you learn, but also just from like the necessity of just making things easier on
Yeah,
yourself.
honestly, it was the only way to do it in order to animate. So it kind of just became the default way, and I just became very comfortable doing it that way. And I'm not going to change it now that I'm like so comfortable with it.
Yeah, it works, right? Like you don't
It's
want to change your flow for the sake of what would maybe be perceived as like the correct way or
right.
the
Exactly.
speedier way. And I would even say like this, as someone that works in After Effects and someone that works in other programs, like pulling vectors out into other programs, this is like the dream. If I was working with someone and they sent this to me, I'd be like, oh man, finally my life is like easier too.
Yeah,
So
and that's another point that you made a good point there with like just the ease of editing things.
mhm.
If you have a solid outline that's, like I said, is all connected, and say I wanted to move these eyes, but this was all like just strokes,
Mhm.
I wouldn't be able to just like grab these eyes right here and just move them over. Say I wanted to
Yeah.
like have them up here instead or have them down here. It's a lot easier to move it when you just have shapes on top of shapes.
Absolutely. And you can kind of like mess with those too. Like if you wanted to take the gleam out of the eye, you could change that. If you wanted
Yep.
to change the expression, you could change the expression. It kind of adds this like longevity to the artwork that makes it a lot easier to work with. And I love that about like vector art too. It's funny because I've been finding myself working a lot more in fresco. Like I used to be like a religious Illustrator worker. Like I loved working in Illustrator. I loved working with my constraints and with shapes and things. But as I've designed more and more and more, like I'm starting to enjoy the I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Like the non balanced. It's not like equal on both sides. It's very
Oh yeah.
like it has this like more
Organic.
organic feel. That's a great word for it. Yeah, like and I don't know if that's to like my benefit or to my downfall because I'm kind of like known for having very vectorized artwork and like that's a shift I've made this year. But like, whatever feels right, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm right with there with you with kind of being known for making very clean artwork,
Mhm.
and I've found myself recently trying to actually sit down and draw stuff by hand a little bit more, just to give it that like organic look that we are talking about.
Right.
Because when you're designing entirely in Illustrator, things do tend to be a little bit clean, maybe
Mhm.
too clean sometimes.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, I think it's just trying to find the balance of using Illustrator when you want to create something that's that has that clean look to it, and then also doing stuff for fun, like you were saying, like in fresco, just hand drawn stuff. Which
What
I've seen some of your like current, like more recent stuff, and I've loved it. So
Thank you. Thank you.
gotta
That
keep
means a
that up.
lot. I appreciate it. And I feel like, you know, you talk about drawing for fun and drawing like just to draw. And I think that that's something that I'm really trying to recapture this year is like that kind of like childlike whimsy of just like, oh, I'm excited to draw today. Not that it's my job. Do you find yourself doing projects for fun? Because I would say you've been doing artwork and design and even freelancing a lot longer than I have. So you probably have been going through these motions of like finding yourself, finding that balance for a lot longer than I have.
Yeah, yeah. I design every day.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that's just like even when it's not a paid job or for a client or anything, I still consider it work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so if I don't have any client work at the moment, or if I'm just like waiting for feedback from the clients, um, then that's when I use my time to create something that I enjoy. So I kind of look forward to having that, I guess, free time to create my own things because those are the really fun ones, and those often lead to getting more jobs actually. So
Right.
you definitely have to have time to create your own personal artwork too, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day is having fun and
Absolutely.
stuff that you enjoy.
And it takes the pressure off stuff too, right? Like it doesn't make you feel like you're doing this for a paycheck. And I feel like that is so easy to get lost when it comes to designing is like that concept of I'm just designing for fun. I'm designing personal or like again, we have friends that their mottos are like make bad art, always make bad art. Don't always make art for it to be good. And
Yeah,
like it's a good little like I guess, motto to live by, especially when, going into the expectation of like having to create a masterpiece or like your next hit or your next piece every single time you sit down at your computer, it's going to take you out of it entirely, you know?
Yeah, and also just being okay with things not being perfect. So
Mm-hmm.
you might get to the point where you might be struggling with a design that you've been working on for a long time, and you're just like, I don't really know what to do next on this thing. And sometimes you just gotta like take a step back and just be like, all right, well, maybe this is just how it is. Like
Yeah, yeah.
this is this design. We can call it a day on it. Maybe I'll come back to it in the future, maybe not, but let's just let it be what it is instead of trying to make it perfect. Kind of just don't get in your head too much with trying to make things too perfect because that does happen to
100%.
artists with overthinking. I feel like,
Especially when you're working in vector work, when you're working in a digital, like you have a vision of what this is going to look like. Like, oh, I want this to look like Keith Haring, or oh, I want this to look like whoever else artist. Like, you have an idea and like an image, and sometimes it doesn't turn out to be that way. Sometimes you sit down and you're like, wow, this is not at all the vibes I was going for. And it's okay to step away from that type of stuff. I mean, I've found myself recently, I think what's been helping me a lot more with drawing, and for anyone in chat, you're more than welcome to share your experiences with your workflow and let us know kind of what that looks like. But for me, um, I have been finding myself just sitting down and just doing sketches. Like, I'm not sketching to have a finished product. I'm not sketching to do anything like, final line work. I'm just going to put proverbial pencil to paper for this. It's, stylus to iPad. But I'm like, I need to do this. I need to get this creative flow out. And it's the only way that my brain is just going to be like, okay, I made something today instead of did nothing creative, right?
yeah.
And it's like
Is
hard. It's a hard
that always
balance.
been your process? Is sketching first and then getting into Illustrator after you sketch, or do you like? For me, I always go straight into Illustrator without even having a sketch.
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. Yes and no. I mean, it kind of depended on the workflow, because the way that I started designing was I manipulated clip art. I manipulated like free clip art and just kind of added on to it as I went, and used the pencil tool and the pen tool and image trace to kind of make it look good. And this was like 3.5, 4 years ago. And
Gotcha.
as I learned Illustrator more and more, I started to kind of do my own thing. But no, I think I always started with some form of a sketch. I think even before I had like an iPad, or was sketching on, or like using Illustrator on my computer, like a main based computer with a mouse and a keyboard, I was mostly drawing like with a piece of paper and I'd take a photo in like a vector app because I didn't have a scanner, and I would like import it into Illustrator and then trace over it. That was usually my go. But I think this type of drawing is very admirable and extremely difficult. Like, just going from your head, but it's got to be liberating, I feel like, to just jump into it with both feet.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've done just so many characters. A lot of these elements that I'm drawing right now are things I've done before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just kind of a matter of using what I've done in the past and kind of recycling ideas and making them into something new.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so like the eyes that you see are pretty common that you'll see it in a lot of my other work with the highlights in the eyes like that. That's kind of just become one of my
Recognizable.
things. But there's certain designs I'll have the eyes spread apart. Certain designs I'll have them overlapping.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, I just kind of have developed this look that I'm kind of known for at this point, and
Yeah,
that kind of makes it easier when I'm making something new because I can kind of just stick to that look that I already have developed.
absolutely. And I have a question to follow up with this, but we're about 16 minutes, or we have about 60 minutes left, so we're just over halfway. And
Okay.
of course, I gotta call something out because I'm sure people have been screaming at their screen. You have actually earned 3 points of
Oh
secret
yeah,
objectives. And if I'm not
what I do?
mistaken, you have hit the most of anyone that's been on the show so far of secret objectives, which is pretty fun. So, three of your secret objectives. One of them was using warm tones in your design, which you're doing.
Okay,
Another one of them was drawing with a pencil tool, which you're doing right now. And the third one
always.
was not designing with a sketch. It's kind of relevant to our conversation. So
Yeah, that's what
it's
we were just talking
all
about.
very landed pretty much at the perfect time. But I kind of want to um explore this like idea of like not necessarily reusing assets per se, but having, for lack of a better term, like got art guidelines for yourself to be recognizable. And that kind of turns into, you know, lifting assets from previous work or trying to kind of stay within like a specific vibe or scope. I'm kind of curious because you've done uh what is it, like packs, like hand packs or eye packs, like for people to use as vectors. Like how do you feel about that process of quote unquote reusing assets in over pieces of work? Is that something that you've always done, that you like, don't like?
I mean, yeah, I like you said, I created a couple like vector packs.
Mm-hmm.
So like a hand pack and a vector pack. So that's kind of the idea that you're talking about is reusing um, previous designs for just elements, I guess. Um, I don't have any problem with it. I think it's fine as long as you're using it in the proper way and not, just copying it and pasting it in there and kind of calling
Right.
it. As long as you're making it your own, I think it's totally fine. And that's why I created those hand packs, not so that people can just use them without like adjusting them at all, but kind of just
Mm-hmm.
to show you when you have that vector file, you can see how I created it, and maybe you can take like look through the layers and kind of see how I did it, and then kind of just learn how to do it your own by using them.
Kind of using
Um,
them as
that's
guidelines.
exactly. So that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of my mindset when I created those. Um, Not necessarily just for people to just pop them in their designs and be done with it, but
Right.
kind of learn from them, I guess, was my goal.
Absolutely. Manipulate them, kind of make them your own thing, and explore the process. I'm kind of curious too, like, because I mean, I think this opinion is it differs for every person that's been on the show. It differs for every artist that I've talked to, or just, the general consensus that you see online. Do you feel like there's like a, maybe not a limit per se, but like like a line that's being crossed? I think that differs for every artist, right? But like, do you have something in your head of like, have you ever experienced your art being stolen, manipulated, anything like that?
I've definitely seen my artwork popping up on, let's say, like Pinterest or
Mm-hmm.
not really Instagram too much, but I've seen pretty much exact copies of my artwork. But it more so looks like they were using like my art as a reference and they were kind of just like drawing my drawings.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I see most of the time. Um, so I'm totally fine with that. I think the line being crossed would be just basically taking like a screenshot of my work and
Vectorizing it, posting
yeah,
it.
just like straight up copying it.
Yeah.
That's obviously crossing the line. But for the most part, I don't really care too much about it if people are like recreating my artwork, especially because I do a lot of educational stuff where
Mm-hmm.
I'm like giving lessons on how to create a character. So if they're, just following along with one of my tutorials and they're making the character, that's like what you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
So I'm not really against that, obviously, but yeah, like I said, if you're just kind of just doing it to try to like gain clout by like stealing people's artwork, of course, that's
Yeah.
it's not cool.
It's pretty whack. I mean, you see a lot of that, like a lot of, it's interesting. I don't know. I've seen this like line, I guess, not necessarily drawn in the sand per se, but like I was just like reading this article the other night. Like, I'm a big fan of comics, and I also love like nerdy stuff. Like I love Magic the Gathering, I love D&D, I love all that stuff. And I was seeing that they were doing like a release for a like promotional item from a
Mhm.
woman that did work with Marvel, and she did something for like Ultimate Spider-Man issue, whatever. And she had this like girl kind of in this running pose, and it looked like it was directly lifted, sketched in some capacity. It was manipulated, but the pose itself was taken from like a Twitter post from someone that did a Twitter post.
Oh
And
yeah.
like it always kind of lives in this weird space in my head for me because like on one end of the spectrum I'm like it's a pretty common pose. I don't know if it's
Mhm.
that egregious, but what am I to say? Like who am I to be the police of what is like considered too much or too little because it's not my work, right? It's not something I worked on. And especially
Right.
if it's being submitted to Marvel, I can't lie. If someone like took a piece of my work or like referenced my work and got to work with Marvel, I'd be like, well, that kind of sucks. I wish it was me who got to work with the Marvel, right?
Of course.
So it's like this weird fine line to try to uh maybe not balance per se, but like that I feel like it differs for every artist I've talked to.
Yeah, and that's always been a thing too, is like where is that line? And
Mm-hmm.
whether it's with like our with like Illustrator stuff or like all the way back in the day with just classic paintings and
Yeah.
stuff. It's always been an issue of where is that line, but I guess it's just different for everybody. And nowadays with the internet, it's just so much easier to take people's art. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like, are you gonna make a big deal out of it, or are you just gonna kind of keep it moving? For me, I try to keep it moving because like, what are you gonna do at the end of the day? It's like,
Yeah. And like it in some sick weird way, it does kind of feel like, you know, inspiration. At least you have some type of influence over
yeah,
the general populace. It's so funny because I had a partnership. I will not say the name live. So if anybody in the chat that's looking for it, I'm not saying it. But I had a
yeah.
partnership
Tell me
with a
afterwards.
yeah. I had a partnership with a company and it was so funny because we were talking about running a campaign for me to make because at the time I was making very like happy like uh you know inspiring kind of work. It was much to the degree of like your posters, right? Very much like a hang in there type vibes. But I
Mhm.
was printing them on shirts, and it was so funny because this company pitched the idea of like you should do like anti-happy shirts, like things that are like sad, right? Like kind of like that's kind of like a double negative, but like I think what I ended up running with was like doing like a rotten apple. And it was like rotten to the core, or like get busy
Okay.
dying, things like that, like ghosts, like things that are not inspirational. And he was kind of giving me some references like, oh, we tried to do this back in the day and we were referencing an artist and like it just never came up off the ground. And dude, when I say it was like literal tracings of all of my work back
No
to
way.
back of what he was showing me, I'm like, that's crazy. I said something too. I was like, because I didn't care. It was old work and it was like,
Yeah.
whatever. It never got off the ground. But I'm like, what what are we doing here? This is crazy. Like in line of my Instagram post too. Like not even like trying to hide it. Just very much like, oh, this was, you know, November, then this was November 15th and this was this. It was extremely funny. Just
Yeah.
like
I mean, I've seen that too. It's like some people just have they don't even care. They don't try to hide
no.
it at all.
No, and I think that like again, taking influence especially in our line of work with you know, you can only draw a certain type of character a certain amount of ways, right? Like I think inevitably you're gonna look like someone. I think taking influence is totally fine. I think it's just like finding a way to kind of make it your own thing and kind of give it your own spin is like the best way to avoid, you know, offending anyone or crossing that line. And for me, again, working in fresco and like really just kind of the way that my process works now for drawing is I kind of like look at stuff and draw it instead of bringing it in or like pulling from like different assets of a drawing or like you know using it as framework just because like I don't know I don't even want to run the gauntlet, you know. I'd rather just be like here's my time lapse of me drawing it from scratch. You know what I mean? So it's a whole thing. We're making some crazy progress on this
Yeah,
design
well, how's our time
already.
looking?
We're looking at about 5 minutes, so
Okay.
kind of rounding out around that time. But I mean, we're I mean, it's looking great. This is fast. This is like
I'm trying
25
to.
minutes of work.
I was gonna do some shoes, but maybe I'll
Shush.
just do some bare feet because of them.
Totally fair. I mean, I feel like the sneakers got to be a bit of a like involving process too.
Sneakers are take a little bit longer than
Yeah,
5 minutes, I would say. So I'll just do
totally
some bare.
fair. Totally fair. Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, like, this is a very Cody design, and it's very sick. And I hope the people in chat are digging this as well. I'm sure they are. But is there any like, I guess, work that you've been working on recently, or directions that you've been taking, or projects that you've been working on that you've been really excited about, like that have
Yeah,
fallen into anything?
yeah. So I'm right now. I have my first art toy that's in production right
Oh,
now. His name is
nice.
Lil Dude. I have one right here. This is actually the sample
So wait, is it hand
character
painted
that
or is it?
this is from the manufacturer. So this is professionally painted at the manufacturer. I did some hand painted ones myself, just as like samples, so I could take pictures and stuff before I did
Yeah,
the. But yeah, the ones that I'm selling are 100% professional made through a manufacturer, so they're all like super clean and they're made out of resin. And I'm just like, I've been wanting to do it for such a long time that it's just so satisfying to see them in person now.
dude, I
So
feel like
that's
that's
like,
the dream.
yeah, that's the project I'm like most excited about right now.
It's so cool. What did that look like? Because I know initially we were talking about that you did the 3D modeling in a program, and you kind of were messing around with the idea, and then you kind of gauged interest on Instagram of people that were interested in it. Like, what? How? Take us through that. Take us through that process while we're finishing up this drawing.
Yeah, I made the 2D design first, and then I was like, this looks. It was a pretty simple character. Um, so I was like, I could probably make a 3D model of this because I'm not super experienced with 3D models, but it's such a simple design. I thought I could do it, so I
Mm-hmm.
did it, and then I got a pretty good feedback from everybody when I posted the 3D model. And I was like, all right, well, let's see if people would be interested in like actually buying this thing. And I did a pre-sale, and enough people ordered one to where it was like it reached the goal that I needed to like actually have them made. So I didn't have to like pay a whole bunch of money up front because it was already paid for through the
Right.
pre-sale. So that was helpful if you're new in that field, like not wanting to spend too much money when you have no idea how many I was going to sell. So
I mean,
the pre-sale
that's
the pre-sale was very helpful with that part of it. But yeah, it's been just a fun process, really, just because it's something new and getting to see them in person is just it's just so satisfying because everything I do is all 2D on a
right.
screen. Maybe I'll make a print, maybe I'll make stickers, but that's still like a 2D image, you know? So like to see it in 3D, it's just like that much more satisfying.
So cool. I mean, it's been so sweet to see the process of it kind of develop into what it is turning into, and the fact that you're working with a manufacturer. I will have to talk to you about that because I have had a dream of doing the I think every artist has had the dream. I'm not like unique by any stretch, but like this it's like so cool, so inspiring. And I've got to ask, of course, is this something that like there'll maybe be like a post sale for? Like the audience might be able to kind of look out for, maybe?
Yeah, so they're actually still some available because I
Ooh,
ordered more than the pre-sale sold. So I still have some available. So they're still up in my shop if you still want one. There's just a limited amount at this point because I'm not gonna order any more. But
fair, fair.
there are still some available if anybody wants to go check them out. They're up in my shop.
If you're in the chat and if you're looking for an exclusive Cody toy, check it out. And we're rounding out to about the last 20 seconds, and
Yeah,
you're
and I'm
pretty
finished.
much finished. This is sick. This is amazing. Do we have a name for this little guy? Do you know anything off the top?
It's for a strawberry for candy. I don't know. Do you got anything? I'm so bad
um,
at it.
let me think. Let me think. Obviously, if you're in the chat, throw out some ideas. I'm thinking like, oh gosh,
I
there's
always
got to be
do like
some fun.
I always do just very like straight to the point things. Like this, my art toy. His name is Lil Dude because
Little
he's a little
dude, yeah,
dude.
yeah.
So maybe this guy's just like Berry Boy.
I like Berry Boy. That's kind of what I was thinking. Berry fella, Berry Boy,
Yeah,
like
just give him
Berry.
like a funny spelling, so it's like Boi, Berry, Boi.
I love
We'll
it.
go with that.
Absolutely love it. This is so sweet, and what a great way to kind of round off the second segment. And we finally have like my favorite segment of the show. I'm gonna go ahead and switch us back over to our floating heads. I think this was again amazing, and definitely go check out Cody's page for more work like this. But our last segment for today is actually a segment all about you. We already kind of got into your work and into, how you do things, but I've got some questions that kind of are on a different line. This segment's called For Future Reference. Again, this
Okay.
is questions involving you, involving your art journey. And with us, we're looking at let me do some math real quick. I think we have about 20 minutes plus 20. A little less. We have about like 18 minutes. So feel free to go in like to detail to explain kind of this process, and I'll ask you some questions, uh with these questions. Feel free to explain yourself. So my first question for you, and is again more of a statement. I always phrase these questions as a statement. One of the things I love about your work specifically and you as a person is your educational side. We talked about that a little bit while you're drawing, and that you do work and you provide videos to kind of show people your process and how to do what you do. And a lot of that is translated over on YouTube. I'd feel like I would say you have a pretty decent audience on YouTube. So, my question for you, and bonus points if you know the actual amount, what is your most viewed video on your YouTube channel?
Most viewed on my YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure it was the first character design tutorial that I did. So it's like a little blue character and he's got like a yellow, like pretty similar to this one actually, where it's like a ponytail on the top of his head. I'm pretty
You
sure it's that
absolutely nailed it. Yeah, that is exactly what it is. It was designing a character with a pencil tool. And yeah, I think it was one of like the earlier ones. Do you want to take a stab for an extra point on how many views that video has?
one. 8 views. Hmm. That one I don't know. I just know it's the most popular because I see comments coming up on it all the time and I get notifications, but I don't see how many views it has.
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
checking that.
That's fair. That's
I
probably
guess I
wise.
can guess. Is it like, is it over 50K?
Oh yeah.
Is it over 100K?
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
It's
See, I had like,
I'll help you out. It's over 100, under 200.
all right, let's go 145.
I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. It's 151. You're within like 10. So you
Yeah,
I'll give it to you. 151,000 views on that video. Kind of
not bad.
crazy. Yeah, I mean, and you're sitting at like 20,000 subscribers on YouTube. What does that process look like for you? Like, did you, cuz I know you from TikTok, and now as I have actually become friends with you and we've connected in person, I know that you have lived on all these different platforms. What did you start with, and what does that look like for you?
I started with Instagram for sure.
Mm.
TikTok, I was always just I was mainly creating content for Instagram and obviously TikTok is a easy translation where you can just post your reels over to TikTok. So that's kind of where I started with TikTok. Because I at first I always thought it was just like the dance app, which it
Yeah, yeah,
was
yeah.
at
It
first.
was.
And it was just like a random night. I was sitting on my couch. This was like before I had kids or anything. And I was just like, I'm just gonna make a TikTok. And like the first video I made, it was just a process video, and it blew up. I was like, okay, I guess I'm on TikTok now. It's like pretty
Absolutely.
satisfying to like see your video blow up like that. But I'm not sure if TikTok does that for your first video just to kind of get you hooked. Because there's been other videos that have gotten like a couple thousand views, and
Yeah.
it's just like it's pretty hit or miss with TikTok. So at the end of the day, I'm mostly just creating content for Instagram and then posting that same content over on TikTok.
Yeah, yeah, and YouTube too. That's like your long form. That's have you always done YouTube? Is that something that's newer?
It's kind of new. I think I started doing like I guess you could call them tutorials during COVID,
Mm-hmm.
while I was in lockdown. But then I kind of took a break for like almost a year or two. And then more recently, even in those first videos, I was not like showing my face. This was kind of before I really like people even knew what I looked like.
Right.
And at some point, it was maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, I just decided, all right, I can just like put my face out there and let people like know who I am as a person rather than just being this like random artist with like not even a profile picture of my actual face.
Yeah, yeah.
I kind of just got over that. I don't know, not like fright, but just like uncomfortableness of putting myself out there, and like teaching myself to talk to a camera and talk to the computer.
Mm-hmm.
It's a challenge. It's just awkward at first, but you kind of get used to it as you go. So yeah, I started doing more of that stuff where I'm like actually talking and giving directions and educational information on Illustrator. Maybe like a couple years ago. So I've been trying to keep up with it as much as I can, but it's like the longer form content and tutorials just it's just more time consuming to create. So
Especially
um,
when you got kids, especially when
yeah,
you got
man,
life. It's a tough go. But I think it's a very valid feeling to be nervous about putting your face out there. Like I wouldn't say that it's like, silly or anything. Like, especially if you've found so much success being an quote unquote anonymous, right? Like it is a huge step to kind of parse expectations of your audience and be like, oh, this is what I look like, this is the person I am. And after you've established so much, I mean, I even think of like my wife, like we met through like social media, and it's so funny because she still tells the story to this day. Like she expected, because of how I presented myself on the internet, for me to be very like cool, calm, collected, tutorial voice. And then we hang out for the first time and I'm like bouncing off the walls, very talkative, very ADHD, very hyper, very just all over the place. She's like, I'm fine with this. I prefer this. But like I was expecting you to be way more chill, like, and I feel like everyone has that perception. Every fan or viewer has a perception of what you're going to be, which is probably different than what you are. So,
yeah. I mean, I've always at first before I started presenting myself on my social medias, I always had this like for whatever reason I had this idea that it's like cool to be like mysterious and like Banksy. Like I'm
yeah.
always been Banksy. That's actually my name.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I always thought that was cool to just like let my art speak for itself, but I just kind of reached a point where I was like, I can like, there's no reason to think like that. You can let people know who you are, especially nowadays. I think people actually do enjoy knowing the person in addition to
Mhm.
the art.
Mhm.
And honestly, when I first started doing that and like showing myself more, I feel like that's when I started to grow more on social media
Right.
and gain more followers that way. So if you're thinking about like putting yourself out there and putting your face out there, I would highly recommend doing it. Like just you just got to get over that hump of uncomfortableness at first, but it does get easier as you get used to it.
100%. I absolutely agree with you. And it does get easier. It's really hard in the beginning, but it does 100% get easier. Well, that's a great segue to move into our next question. Another opportunity to get on the board. This involves how long you've been designing, how long you've been making art. Um, I like to, with people that come on to the show, explore our guests' Instagram and see if there's any interesting, relevant things that, maybe helped with their art development or, a big thing that happened. And actually scrolling all the way back, way, way, way back, the art you started with is a lot different than the art that you make now. It's a big difference, but that was 2015. So
It's way back.
10 years ago. So my question for you is, um, of these 2015 art pieces, a majority of them were, I should say not a majority, but a good portion of them were portraits of celebrities. Can you
Hmm.
name any of those celebrities that you drew? And I'll give you a point for each celebrity that you name. I have 4 written down.
I could name more than four.
Yeah. Hey, that's more
I'll
points on
go
the
with.
board.
So you have four of them picked out, though.
I do have 4.
Okay.
We'll stick with the 4 that I have written down just so we don't go over what I have as my pre-recorded
Okay.
ending ending points.
I
But
guess
4
I'll probably
opportunities.
just go with like the ones that were like more popular at the
Mm-hmm.
time. So Mac Miller, I know, was a pretty popular one. Is that one of them?
Mm-hmm. 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 Mac Miller was one of them.
Mac Miller. What about I know I did an Aaliyah one.
Aaliyah was on there. You're crushing it
Uh,
right now.
what about Marilyn Monroe?
I do not have Marilyn Monroe. I'll give you a hint for this last one.
Yeah, I need a
They
hint.
are rappers. So, one more
Okay.
opportunity.
Let's go with Kendrick.
Nailed it, dude. 3 points on the board. Easy peasy. The other one I had written down was ASAP Rocky. So,
Yeah. Okay.
dude, absolutely nailed it. It's so funny because, and I don't want to like by any stretch generalize this work, but I definitely feel like this is where people got started, is like portraits, especially with digital art, right? You worked in like this blocky texture to kind of build out these shapes and these characters. Like, how did that turn into what you do now?
Yeah, that's a good question. We kind of touched on it earlier with like how I create the layered
Right, right.
images, with like each element being its own layer on top of each other. So that's kind of the same way I did the those portraits. I don't know if you're showing them right now, but
I
like
am not, but I would definitely. Hopefully, we can get a little drop to a link in chat to
okay, cool.
to
Yeah.
show.
So basically, the what the portraits would look like is just the highlights and the shadows would be different colors. So I'm kind of blocking out the shapes within the face
Hmm.
and making them different colors, but they're all overlapping over each other. So it's honestly the exact same process that I'm doing nowadays, but just nowadays it's more cartoony and rounded edges and stuff like that. But I definitely learned how to use the pencil tool really well back then doing those portraits, and I still use pencil tool a lot nowadays. So I guess I just used that technique of creating those portraits, and it kind of just developed my skill set within Illustrator. And I use those skills like still nowadays.
Yeah,
Even though it's
I
a totally different style, it's still the same skill set.
it's so cool, like honing these skills again with just like exercises, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's so funny because to talk into the same vein, one of the things that I had always been dreading for years, but I just never understood was like figure drawing. I just never understood anatomy, never have, and I'm like, I really want to like kick this. I'm gonna take an anatomy class. I'm gonna learn how to at least build from blocks, right? Build the basic human shape from blocks. So I learned very crudely. Like I'm talking like researched myself, kind of went through the process on my own. And it's funny because I'm using those techniques just to kind of break them. Because if you look at the work that we do, it's not proportionate. It is proportionate for the character, but like it's different. And having those skills and applying those in a different way is similar to what you're doing with your portraits, to having those skills of just being able to use the pencil tool, like how complicated the pencil tool can be. Layering colors, layering artwork is it no work is fruitless. There's no pun intended, but no work is without a payoff. The
Right.
practice really does help so much in this line of work, especially with Illustrator, which is constantly changing. It's not like riding a bike. It's
Yeah.
like you're constantly iterating and constantly changing, and so it's a lot. It's a lot of work, but I love it. I love seeing your progression, and I think that's as good as ever to transition into our last question. Of course, we got about 5 minutes left, and that question is involving the big elephant in the room that we've been touching over your animation. It's amazing. I love it. We've had many conversations about the opportunities it's brought you and how, much how passionate you feel about it. So I want to kind of throw it back to a piece of work that you did for Chill Hop Music.
Okay.
My question for you is, in that animation, this is on your portfolio page. So if you guys want to check this animation out, please go check out Cody's portfolio. What was the name of the song
Ooh.
playing on the phone for that animation? It's a hard one.
So it's the phone animation.
It's the phone, the one of like the character holding it, and it like scrolls, and it's just like chill hop. Music is the artist.
Yeah, because I've done more than one animation for Chill Hop, so that makes it a little bit trickier because I
Oh,
don't
I should
remember
have specified. Yeah.
what goes with which. Um, but is it by any chance is it an Eldre beat?
It is not, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, well then I have no idea then.
That's okay.
It's probably a song they gave me to use.
It might have been, yeah. I mean, it also might have been an Eldre beat. I'm not. I saw a section for Eldre, but it's okay. We'll just use it as a talking point. The song was Airplane Mode. So
Oh, well that's the name of that was the name of the playlist that the animation was
gotcha.
for.
Gotcha.
So yeah,
So
that makes
yeah.
sense.
Yeah. So they had this nice animation, showed airplane mode, obviously was a playlist. I would love to talk about that with our last like minute or two before we have to wrap up, about that experience with working with Eldre and like doing those animations, because it was a big portion of your work for a while, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, me and LJ developed a good relationship because he's I've always been very into music. I used to make a lot of music myself with making beats and stuff, and he's very well known in that field.
Mm-hmm.
So we both followed each other for a really long time, and um, he asked me to do some artwork for him for his Snowfi album. So it's one of his early like Christmas records that he made.
Mm-hmm.
I made the artwork for that, and then we ended up just working together a lot, and it was just like a good team that we made together, and we just created a bunch of artwork together and ended up doing a whole NFT series called Lo-Fi Guy, where he made all the
Yeah.
music for it, and I made the illustrations and animations, and it just turned into this whole thing. Back when NFTs were very popular. So yeah, it's we still talk to each other to this day. We've built a good relationship, and it was just yeah a really fun time creating all those lo-fi guys. We ended up making like over 50 different
So
characters.
cool.
That's like 50 beats. It was like a whole year of both of our lives where he was like not really making any other music besides the lo-fi guy music, and I was not taking on any clients at all. I was just
And
doing
it
strictly
blew up. It was worth the effort. It was worth the time, right?
it
Like it
was like
blew up.
for sure. It was a whole year of both of our lives that it was just like it was fun to just like keep creating more and more and more, like building this whole like universe of little guys that were just dancing to music. And people like can still listen to the albums. We
So
got five
cool.
five albums that came out through this project. So it was a really
It's
cool
crazy.
experience.
Absolutely. I mean, and if there was any good of a point to end on, it's collaborate with people and make stuff for fun and focus on stuff. Do stuff that you'd enjoy, because
Yeah.
obviously it pays off. You can end up like Cody. You can end up doing cool stuff, animating, having a good time. And I think it's as good as ever and a great place for us to end our show. Before we fully end it, though, of course, we got to rack up your points and see what your final score was. Cody, quick question for you. Did he have a good time?
Yeah, it was a great time chatting with you. Always a great time chatting with you. Every
I
time we get together and chat, it's always good conversations. So it
I
was fun.
appreciate it, and I agree, and that is a point on the board. That's just an excuse for you to say that you like talking to me. Obviously, we finished the design today, so I'm going to go ahead and tally up our points, bring up our final score here. Drum roll, please, in the chat. Your final score is 9 points, which is pretty good.
Take it.
I'm
I'll
not
take
gonna
it. Is
lie.
that like above average, below average? Is that like pretty
It
good?
is above average. We usually stay in like the 6 or 7 ish
Okay.
range. So you did a great job. Cody, do you want to let people know where we can find you after the show and, anything that you've got coming up? Maybe plug in that sweet little toy again.
Yeah, Cody A Banks. Just make sure you have the A in there. A lot of people call me Cody Banks, but don't get it confused with the Frankie Muniz movie. It's Cody A Banks. Everywhere, social media, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. New projects that I have coming up. I can't give too much information, but I do have something pretty cool in the works with a well-known musician and band collaboration.
Ooh.
But I can't give too much information on that. So just keep your eyes peeled on my Instagram for that one.
Keep your eyes peeled. Go give Cody a follow. And thank you so much for watching this episode of Art Maxing. Again, it's one of my favorites. Thank you, Cody, for taking your time to spend your day with us.
Thanks
And
for having me.
stick around for the next live stream going on Adobe Live. Catch you guys later. Bye.
Peace.